الباغي عداها حتى دوى مدفع الحق قضاء وأرض الإباء الباغي عداها حتى دوى مدفع الحق قضاء حي حشودا للرب سجودا حي حشودا للرب سجودا نمضي جنودا نجوب الوهادي نمضي أسودا لا نخشى الوغادي نمضي جنودا نجوب الوهادي نمضي أسودا لا نخشى الوغادي نمضي جنودا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن دعا بدعوته واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Amma ba'd. All praises due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And surely the best reward is for those who have taqwa. And surely there is no animosity except for the oppressor. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners. And that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, is his servant and his last messenger. May Allah constantly and always send peace and blessings to Muhammad and to his family and his companions and all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. As to what follows, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin with alhamdulillah, and I bring you the warm salams and greetings and feelings of solidarity from your brothers and sisters in South Africa. And I pray that Allah subhanahu would make you and make me all successful in this life and would bless us inshallah to be of those who would enter Jannah in the hereafter. No doubt since the last time I was here with you, the world has changed radically. And the position of Muslims in many parts of the world has gone from being very obscure to being openly placed in front of the eyes of the people. Muslims are finding themselves under pressure, and not only in the traditional areas of pressure, but they are finding themselves under pressure even in countries, in some of the Western countries, where we never expected to feel psychological, physical, emotional, financial pressure. And I seek refuge in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has revealed to his beloved messenger alayhi salatu wasalam the best of words and the final revelation. And Allah subhanahu tells us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tattaqullaha yaj'al lakum furqanan wa yukaffir ankum sayyi'atikum wa yaghfir lakum wallahu dhul fadl al-azim. In Surah Al-Anfal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, O you who believe, if you keep your duty to Allah, if you have taqwa, He will grant you a criterion, and He will release you from your sins and forgive you. And Allah is the Lord of great bounty. Many of the great ulama have looked into this ayah, and I believe it is of special importance to us today, with the world being so covered with confusion and with deception. Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah in his Fathul Qadir, speaking through the eyes of many of the fuqaha, has shown us that this furqan, because it's saying that if we have taqwa, Allah would make for us a furqan. That this furqan is thabat al-qulub wa quwwat al-basair wa husn al-hidayah. That this furqan would give us, insha'Allah, thabat al-qulub. That Allah would strengthen the hearts. وَقُوَّةُ الْبَصَائِرِ, that Allah would give us that vision that we need and that basira that we need, not to look just at superficial things, but to be able to go to the depths of the issues. And that Allah would give us hidayah, the best of guidance. The Furqan can also refer to that which separates al-haq min al-batil, that which a criterion that separates the truth from falsehood. The Furqan also can refer to an-najat min kulli ma takhafuna, an escape from all that you fear. And so the more we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we come closer, the more we surround ourselves in the consciousness of the Creator, the more we connect this hayat ad-dunya with the next life and realize that this life is passing and that to a certain extent it is only an illusion. The more we can come to this understanding, this will help us to be able to deal with this pressure, to deal with these demons, real or false, that are popping up around us and around Muslims and people of consciousness throughout this planet. So I seek refuge in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I pray that Allah would plant our feet firmly in the earth, and that Allah would clear our hearts of any fear, and He would replace that fear with taqwa. He would replace that fear with the consciousness of Him, so that whatever happens in this world, that as long as we know we have pleased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that inshallah we would be satisfied with the qadr of Allah in however it falls. Brothers and sisters, friends, billions of dollars are being spent to distort the image of Islam. And we are seeing it now done on an international scale. Even though we know Islam is the religion of peace, we know that it comes from the root salama. It is seeking peace through submission to the will of Allah. We know that Islam is the way of all of the anbiya, of all of the prophets. That Allah sent prophets and messengers to every nation, to every tribe. That this understanding of not submitting to material things, not submitting to desires, this has been shared by people throughout the planet. And it is through this way that human beings found peace. That human beings found a way to relate to each other than through racialism, or through tribalism, or through class struggle and class differences. That this way of tawheed, this way of the oneness of God, when it comes into the hearts, is even greater than police forces. There is no security higher than the security of the hearts. And if the hearts of human beings are brought close, and we understand our relationship with the Creator of the heavens and the earth, then there would be no need for secret police. There would be no need for these task forces that are put together in order to control people. But Allah knows best that there are people who do not want this, who have another agenda. And so millions and billions are being spent through the airwaves, in the media, in the educational systems, to try to distort the image of Islam. And while this negative image is being carried out and shown for Muslims, horrific crimes are coming about in our community. And we have seen horrific scenes coming out of Bosnia-Herzegovina, horrific scenes from Kosovo and Chechnya. And now we are seeing murder on a wide scale happening in India. Terrible murders without justice in the land. And we are now witnessing, and the whole human population witnesses Janine, and witnesses naked aggression, and people being killed and crushed and bleeding to death in front of the media. And the information is beamed around the world, and yet people are not responding. And it is not all the time because of the size of the army in any of the illegal materialist states, but in many cases there is a type of deception. There is something happening in the human family where individuals have the capability of creating illusions, of deluding people, so that even when they see what is true, they can't believe it, or they're not sure whether it's true or not true. And so we need to ask ourselves and ask the world and try to analyze what is going on. What did we do as a nation? Because we pray? Because we believe in one God? Because we fast? Because we don't want to judge people based on their color? Is this the reason why they are trying to punish us? We have to analyze this, to try to understand what is going around us, and to begin to look at issues not just from the superficial side, but to go deeper into issues and try to understand the symbols and the signs and the groupings of people who are having profound influences upon the human family. We need to look in the Quran not only for superficial guidance, but we need to believe that the Quran gives us historical precedents, that it shows us incidents that have happened in history, not just as asatir al-awwaleen, not just of stories and fables of those who came before us, but it shows us this for guidance, for understanding about what is happening today. And we need to begin to look at these incidents that have happened, to study what happened to the Anbiya alayhimus salam, and to try to see how it relates to us in our own lives. In the oft-repeated story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, the Pharaoh of Egypt, we see one of the great historical precedents that was set in the Quran itself. And when Bani Israel started to get powerful, and the information of Musa alayhi salam came to the upper class ruling councils within Egypt, they came to the Pharaoh. They came to their leader and they said, what will you do about them? You must have some kind of plan. You must have some way to stop this insurrection going on in the house of Egypt. And the Pharaoh answered, and it is enshrined in Surah Al-A'raf in verse 127 and in many places in the Quran, قَالَ سَنُقَتِّلُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَنَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ وَإِنَّا فَوْقَهُمْ قَاهِرُونَ. The Pharaoh said, we will kill their young boys and keep the women alive, for surely we have irresistible power over them. And so we see the precedent happening, the killing of the youth and the control of the sexuality of the women. And we see it happening today so vividly in Philistine. Gun down the young people. If you don't kill them, shoot them in their knees, maim them, destroy their minds, destroy their bodies, let them drink coke, let them be filled with drugs, fill their mind with confusion, so they will never be able to stand up against the oppression that is happening in the land. Control the sexuality of the women and make them think more about their own bodies, more about pleasing people with their physical self, so they won't have time to raise children who would stand up against evil. And so when this information got back to Musa alayhi salam, we see also enshrined in these famous verses, قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا إن الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين. Musa alayhi salam said to his people, seek your help from Allah and have patience. Surely this earth belongs to Allah, and He will give it to whom He pleases from His servants, from His worshippers. And the best reward in the hereafter, the best reward is for those who have taqwa. So Musa alayhi salam did not talk about numbers. He did not talk about weapons. But he spoke about something on the inside. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. He spoke about taqwa. And it is interesting that throughout Islamic history, there have been many of the leaders and illuminaries in Islam and the scholars of Islam who looked not only at the outside, what was happening, but tried to understand the complexity of the inside of the Muslims. Knowing that Allah has said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people till they change that which is in themselves. He will not change it to the positive until they change that which is in themselves. And in other interpretations, if they are going positive and they change themselves into negative, then Allah will punish them. So either way that you look at it, change will not come about. We cry for change. We make dua. We cry in our masajid. We cry in our houses. But Allah will not change us until we change that which is in ourselves. And so we need to begin to look inside. Taqwa, we know, is a combination of factors. Mainly al-khawf wal-raja. It is a combination of fear and of hope. And fear and hope are stimuli. They are things that call you to action, that push you to action. And one of the great scholars of Islam, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi rahimahullah, in his Minhaj al-Qasideen, there is Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, many of the scholars tried to understand these terminologies in a deeper way. But in this particular text, the scholar tells us, al-khawf wal-raja sa'iqani yab'athani ala al-amal. وَمَا لَا يَبْعَثْ عَلَى الْعَمَلِ فَهُوَ غُرُورٌ. He said that fear and hope are two stimuli. They stimulate you to action. And that which does not stimulate you to action, it is deception. Fear makes you run from something. When you hope in something, you move towards it. So you are actively involved. But the issue of deception, one of the big issues in deception is when we are stagnated. When we are looking good, when our numbers look large, but it has no impact. And people have looked at the Muslim world and they said, you know, you have everything, man. You have money, you have leadership, you have armies, you have strategic position, you have everything, and it's like a beautiful vehicle that is standing there looking good, but there's no petrol in it. He's in his Lamborghini and he's ready to drive. And everybody's sitting at the stoplight and they're waiting for him to go. And they look at him and the light turns green. And he's looking good and he's going nowhere. But he's looking good. He's looking like he's going to win the race. So this is what we need to consider about ourselves. Because the body of Islam, to a great extent, has all the potential to set the stage for this century, to govern over the peoples of the earth. But yet some type of ghurur is happening now. And this ghurur is a general thing, and there is a specific thing, and we want to try to understand deception, to look at some of the levels of deception, the types of deception, and the danger, and how it can make us look good and go nowhere. In looking at deception, there are many different meanings for this term. Some of the meanings translated into English could be illusion, or delusion, or conceit. It also could mean danger, and it could also mean vanities, or it could mean the shaitan, wal-iyadu billah. And Ibn Qudama rahimahullah, he told us the ghurur is ma yaghurru al-insan min mal wa jah wa-shahwa wa-shaitan. Anything that deceives the person, whether it's the wealth, whether it is your position, whether it is desires, or whether it is the shaitan himself, wal-iyadhu billah. And you will see ghurur coming in many forms in the Quran itself. In Ali Imran we see in part of the ayah it says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ, that the life of this world is nothing but material deception. Allah tells us, وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ إِلَّا غُرُورًا, and that the shaitan promises them nothing but deception. It's an illusion. Here today, and it's gone tomorrow. And you see many different verses dealing with this. And the general form of ghurur we see being carried out within the Western society, which now through globalization has influenced people all throughout the planet. And we see people being caught up with the hayat ad-dunya, struggling for wealth, struggling back and forth. And even this deception of wealth, this danger of wealth is in the Muslim world. And it may be one of the biggest fitnas that we face today. And the Prophet ﷺ has told us clearly, Inna li kulli umma fitna, wa fitnatu hadhihi al-umma al-mal. Every nation has a trial, has a temptation, and the trial and temptation of this nation is wealth. But the general form of ghurur we need to try to understand. So there is a form of ghurur that happens to people, and it is really carried out. You really see an extreme version of this that comes about with casinos and with gambling. Because this is where you see the raw nature of people coming out. That greed and that desire to win something that is an illusion. And 99.9% of them are losing all of their money. But they keep going back thinking that they're going to win. And some foolish Muslims, they think they're going to win too. One Muslim even came to me and he won. He actually won, I don't know, about $20,000 or something like that. And he came to me, Brother Abdullah, please, let me have a fatwa, brother. I mean, I'll pay my zakat. I'll pay my zakat. I can't give you a fatwa, man. If you win something in the lotto, if you win something by gambling, it's haram. And I can't give you a fatwa for this, man. But this ghurur we saw carried out in Canada. A young woman won in the lottery, the Ontario lottery. She won $21 million. Now imagine that. $21 million she won. Overnight she's a millionaire. But she came on television that night with her father. The father had some wisdom. And he said, may God help us. May God help us. The next day, they were frantically calling the family. They wanted to marry the girl. They wanted to move in next door to the house. They started threatening their lives. And so he had to take his daughter and hide, change their identity, and go underground. So the money that was supposed to free them put them in prison. وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. It's material deception. In Britain, I remember a man won about 20 million British pounds in the lottery. And the whole of the country stood still. He's in paradise, man. He's in heaven. He has everything that he wants. And then his nafs took over, his nafs al-amara bisu. And they describe, it's a real thing, it was an article. He started eating food. He started importing food and eating food and eating food until he gained weight and became about 310 pounds and he dropped dead. وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. So the money that was supposed to give him life took his life. It's a deception. You think the money is liberating you, but it's not liberating you. You don't get something for nothing. It's a deception though, and it's put out in front of the people. So the people live with this dream, and they continue to play the lottery, they continue to gamble, thinking that they will be successful. But what is interesting for us tonight is not just the general form of this deception. We want to go to the specific with the Muslims. And it is always good within our series, and anything that we do, that we start with ourselves. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. we need to start with ourselves. And the scholars looked into many different categories of ghurur. We want to talk about a few of them tonight. There is one form where the people are deceived bi-salah aba'ihim, that they are deceived by the goodness and righteousness of their families. So they think that because of their family, they're saved. And so they say, no, I don't have to make salat. My father used to make salat. My father was a great alim. We come from a long line of scholars. I don't have to get up for fajr. He is deceived. No, my mother used to give zakat. Why do I have to give zakat? We are an important family. And we built the mosque, we built the center. Why do I have to give zakat? This is deception. This is where the ghurur comes in, because he is now stagnated. Because of the issue of his family, that should actually inspire him to do more, it becomes turned around, and because of his family, or his nationality, or his village, he thinks that he's saved. And this is a form of deception that is in our ummah. And it has even reached the point that we had people who call themselves Sharif. And we have great respect for the family of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. But some people are running around playing like they are noblemen, or they are sayyids, and they think they can do anything because they have that name. Even some of the rulers of our country, some corrupt tyrants who have ruled our countries, claim to be from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But your blood alone is not enough. Because if it was enough, then let us look back at the time of Nuh alayhi salam. Look at the son of Nuh alayhi salam, who drowned with the other people. Look at the wife of Lut alayhi salam. Look at many of the Anbiya, and you will see that some of their parents, even though they were prophets, some of their parents are in hellfire. And if you look at Banu Hashim, you will see that Abu Lahab, the father of the flames, is Hashimi. He has the royal blood, but he is burning in hell. And his name will be now on the lips of Muslims to the day of judgment, even though he's Sharif, if you want to go by blood. And so the family is one way that a person could be confused. Another form of ghurur also comes in when the person has, the Muslim has hasanat and sayyi'at. He has ta'at and ma'asi. So he has good deeds and he thinks, well, I have a lot of good deeds. So even though his bad deeds might be more than the good deeds, he is deceived by the shaitan, wal-iyadu billah. He is deceived and he thinks that because he has these good deeds, he doesn't have to worry about the other ones. He doesn't need to make tawbah. Or he'll wait 30 years and then he'll make his tawbah. He is being deceived. In some cases, he gets up in the morning and he makes istighfar 100 times. And he starts counting his barakah. Or he goes in the mosque and then he makes istighfar at a certain time of day and he says, no, it's 27 times 1,000 times 6 times this, and he gets his calculator and he's counting his hasanat. Right? So by 9 o'clock in the morning, he's already in Jannah. The rest of the day, he's cursing, he's backbiting, he's scandalizing, he's calling the imam names and trying to scandalize this organization and talk about that organization. But he thinks that because he made istighfar 100 times, that he's free, he's saved. He is deceived. He does not know that the Prophet ﷺ has said, La yadkhulul jannah namam, that the person carrying scandal will not enter paradise. He should never forget that. And so the deception can come even to a believer who has done righteous deeds. But they took it a step further. Even the ulama can be deceived. And we are living in the time when many of the ulama, many of the so-called scholars, that the knowledge is actually not being given out in the proper way. That the knowledge could actually end up being on any person, it could be a curse on them Yawm al-Qiyamah. And so the scholar can also be deceived, as we have found from the great scholars, when the scholar, he knows about ghurur. He can tell you the ayah. He can explain it to you. But he thinks that because he's a sheikh, it doesn't apply to him. It only applies to the awam. It only applies to the general people. He doesn't remember that Allah told us in Surah Ash-Shams, قَدْ أَفْلَهَا مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, that the one who purifies his heart is the one who succeeds. Not the one who knows about purity, but the one who actively is involved in purifying himself. That is the one who is successful. He doesn't remember that Allah told us in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, and he makes this tashbih, this description. He tells us what we could become. He said, كَمَثْلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا, that you can be like a donkey with books on his back. The donkey's riding, he's got tafsir, he's got Bukhari and Muslim, he's got everything on his back, but he can't read. So he's just moving along, carrying the knowledge, and the knowledge is of no benefit to him. And so this ghurur can happen even to the people of knowledge. And we could take it a step further. There are even those whose the complexity of ghurur goes to the point where they know the ayah and they apply the Quran to their superficial self. They do some of the outward rituals of Islam. They are doing their rituals, but they do not apply the knowledge to their hearts. They stop on the outside. And so even though they know what deception is, they still have talab al-ulu. They want power and position. They can't control the shahwa. They can't control their desires. They can't control their material needs, even though they know that it is wrong. But they don't apply it to their hearts. It is like, and the example is giving, it is like a person, he looks in his backyard and he has grass and weeds. So he cuts the grass and he sees the weeds. And so he cuts the weeds, but he only cuts it on the surface. And he says, now my garden is perfect. I can't see the weeds, but he didn't go to the root of the weed. And by not going to the root, it will grow up again. Next time it'll grow up even stronger. So he needs to go to the root of the issue, right down to the heart. And this is one of the crucial points. How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us authority in the land if we have takabbur, if we have arrogance and pride in our hearts? How would Allah give us power in the land if we look down on people, even other Muslims, because of their color, or because of their language, or because of their economic status? How can we expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us authority? How can we expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us victory if we have hasad? And we are so jealous of each other, always looking back at each other. What material progress did he make? Did she have a new baby? Okay, if you want one, that's fine. But if you hate the fact that another Muslim has a baby, or another Muslim has a new car, or they made some progress, the masjid has a new carpet in it, if you hate that, then the hasad destroys everything. And so we could be fasting, we could be praying, we could be going to Hajj, paying zakat. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْحَسَدْ فَإِنَّ الْحَسَدَ يَأْكُلْ حَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبِ. Beware of jealousy and envy. It eats up your good deeds like a fire eats up firewood. And so the hasad can destroy us from the inside. This ghurur also can take an interesting form. And I was shocked to read in books that are over sometimes 1,000 years old, and to find issues that are very similar to what is happening in our own community. And I say this with all humility to the movement leaders that we have. But our Islamic movements should be bringing us together. Our Islamic movements need to unite us on the truth, need to be humble and sincere, and bring the Muslims together. This is what we need in these times. Strong examples. Not just izzah on other Muslims, but izzah al-kafirin. That's standing up in front of the disbelievers and the haters of truth. But there is a form of ghurur that is mentioned by the scholars, where the person spends all their time on ilm al-khilaf. That he gets the books of fiqh, he gets the books of aqidah, and he only studies the differences between this scholar and that scholar. So he becomes a master in showing you the differences between that and that, and he can actually point out a difference and tell you 10 daleels for this thing. He can tell you the opinion of that, and he can't even make salat right. But ilm al-khilaf. And so what happens is, many of our young people get caught up fighting each other over triviality. Now there are some points which are very important, but the difference of opinion should not make you hate another Muslim. It should not make you threaten the life of another Muslim. Then what is the purpose of it? And the Prophet ﷺ has told us, مَا ضَلَّ قَوْمٌ قَطْ بَعْدَ هُدَى إِلَّا أُوتُوا الْجَدَلِ. That people would not go astray after guidance until they were given the ability to argue with each other. The ability to argue. When our energy should not be spent on arguments. That we need to go forward. Because we are in a deep struggle now, whether we know it or not. And if you're in a hot struggle, a hot battle, and the bullets are flying and people are dying, and a Muslim comes on your side and you look at him, are you going to say, what madhab are you, brother? What does it matter, man? You have a Muslim on your side, man. And does it matter whether he sits in tahiyyat and he moves his finger or not? If they have daleel, if there is part of Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah, what is the problem? But some people are so overly heavy. They are actually tilting toward this. Their whole life is based on khilaf. On finding what is wrong with other Muslims and attacking them and shooting them down and destroying them and breaking up their organization. You don't have to have Mossad. You don't have to have these organizations, man. Just let loose some of these twisted Muslims on them. And so the great scholars of Islam 1,000 years ago said, it is ghurur. It is ghurur. It is deception. And we need to look at this before we even look outside. Another group spends their time and they're really into this thing, and it is happening, and may Allah help them. They spend their time on makharij al-huruf. So they learn ilm al-tajweed, and they are reading how to pronounce the harf. And so he spends all his time on makharij al-huruf, and he learns to pronounce it perfectly, and he never reads the meaning of the Quran. So he knows how to say it, but he's not putting it into his own life. And the Prophet ﷺ said the time would come when people would read the Quran in melodious tones and it wouldn't pass their throats. It wouldn't pass their throat. Sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Others read or spend their time in Nahu and Sarf. And they learn the rules of Nahu. And we need to know these rules of grammar. We need to know it. But if the whole day is spent upon Nahu and Sarf, and people are dying, man. They're dying in the streets. And you're arguing about the struggle between the Kufiyin and the Basriyin in grammar. People are dying in the streets. So we need to come out of this ghurur. It is the first deception. It is the first and most lethal form of deception that we are facing. It is the essence of the struggle that is going on today. Because I believe strongly, and Allah knows best, that this ummah is moving toward the front, and this ummah has the potential to lead the world. But we need to try to repair ourselves. And I want to leave you with a few points. One is that we need to renew our relationship with Allah. We need to renew our relationship constantly, and to try to humble ourselves in front of the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And to try to build up the taqwa, that our consciousness of Allah will not be only when we are in lectures, or only when we are around other Muslims. That even if we are by ourselves, even if we are downtown, and the time comes for salat, we look for a place to make salat. Even if we're downtown in the mall. We don't only pray inside of the masjid. And so we need to get to build that taqwa inside of ourselves. We also need to seek authentic Islamic knowledge, to try to base our understandings upon the great Salaf of this ummah who have given us authentic guidance, and not to necessarily base our lives upon dreams. And no doubt there is something in the dreams, but it is not the basis of our lives. Not base the thing upon the length of a person's beard. In Cape Town now we have all types of people running around. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us with many masajid, 120 masjids in just one city and its suburbs. But all types of movements, and now you got to watch out because people are coming with giant beards and giant kufis on their head and turbans that are like, 2 feet wide, and they're coming in now and people are fooled at the size. They're measuring the turbans now. Who's got the biggest one? Don't be fooled by the turban. Don't be fooled, because sometimes it's the opposite. And if we are really supposed to humble ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then why would we even try to do that? To be struggling against each other in this type of thing. So we need to strengthen that taqwa within ourselves, and to try to look for the type of authentic knowledge that can help us separate Islam from culture. Islam, culture. Because our cultures are many times not Islamic. And many times we are doing things because we saw our parents do it. We are doing things because it is the way of our people, not because it is the way of the Sahaba and the early generations. Number 3, that we need to ask Allah for hikmah, for wisdom. And surely in these times, it is that hikmah, that balance, that tawazun that we need in these times, because one of the dangers in our ummah, again, in deception, is to go to extremes. But we need that balance to be able to make the right decisions, as the Arabs would say, وَضْعُ الشَّيْءِ فِي مَحَلِّ, putting things in the proper place. لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. For every situation you're in, there is the right thing to say. It's like a doctor. When the doctor sees his patient, and if the doctor were to just look at you and say, okay, take this medicine here, my friend, he might give you the wrong medicine, it's not enough and you're still sick, or he might give you too much and kill you. But no, he takes your temperature, he takes your weight, he asks you about your history, he feels your pulse, right? And after he gathers this information now, along with his knowledge of medicine, then he makes his decision. That's the hikmah. So we shouldn't be going into situations where we don't know the circumstances around us. That you need to have patience to relax and to go into the situations, with the sabr and with basira now. Look at everything. Try to look through the lines. Don't just judge people on zahir. Don't just judge on the superficial things that we see. So we need to ask and pray to Allah for the hikmah. Next, we need to focus more on Islamic character, on mu'amalat. And for a long time we focused on ibadat. We focused on how to make salat, how to pay zakat, how to fast, how to make hajj. And definitely that is the basis. But now there is a great need for Islamic character. Because we are under the spotlight. And you'll be surprised to know that even though in America, where it seems to be so bad for Muslims, in New York City, right, New York City itself, and many parts of America, you can't get a copy of the Quran. You cannot get a copy. Every single English copy has been sold out. In Brazil, I received message, every Portuguese translation of the Quran in Brazil has been sold out. Everybody wants to read this book. So out of this evil, out of this action, which I don't believe that any of us did, And Allah knows best who did it. And I do not feel that it is a victory for Islam. It is a terrible action that was done, and thousands of Muslims might have died in those flames. But out of that evil that went on that day, Allah is bringing us closer to where we need to be. And maybe we need to have some pressure on us. Maybe life has become too easy for us. So we need to study the character of the Prophet ﷺ. He told us, بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have been sent to complete the best of character. So you need to look at our character, man. We can't fast in the month of Ramadan, and as soon as Shawwal comes, you start swearing. A person goes to Hajj and comes back to his shop, and then he raises the prices on people. He cheats people after he just made Hajj. Then why did he make Hajj? Just to put Haji Fulan on his shop? Number 5, we need to strive for unity. How many times has Allah told us, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا? Ordered us to hold on to the rope of Allah together. Don't be divided. How many places we've been told this? So we need to work for unity. In the same way that many Jamaats work for disunity. Work to show khilaf. We need to now do work to come together with other Muslims. And to love and appreciate the people of the Qibla. And the great fuqaha of Islam, if they had a difference of opinion with each other, they would give nasiha politely, and they would make dua for that person. They would make dua for the person, and not curse the person and scandalize their name. So we need to work towards seeking this unity in the ranks of the believers. Number 6, we need to have a positive approach. A positive approach. Not a negative approach. It seems difficult, no doubt. And in the battle of the Khandaq, you can recall that the armies of the Ahzab were coming from Mecca to surround the Muslims, to destroy the Muslims. And they were digging a trench. And they came to a stone, they couldn't break it. They asked for Rasulullah ﷺ, and he came and he hit the stone, and he saw a flash, and he said, I see the empires of Persia opening up. The empires of Rome are opening up. And imagine this saying like, empires of Rome and Persia. We're being about to be attacked by almost 20,000 wild Bedouins. But see how positive he was? In the most difficult circumstances, the greater picture, the ultimate goal, and not just caught up on the pain of the present. And so we need to have a positive approach. As the Prophet ﷺ would say, يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا بَشِّرُوا وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا. Make things easy, don't make it difficult. Call people to Islam. Don't drive them away. And lastly, I believe that now is the time that we need to go public. Not to hide. That we need to come out in the schools, in the universities, in any possible way, and explain the beautiful aspects of Islam. And distance Islam from any confusion coming out of our ummah. Distance Islam and show the lies that are coming out of Hollywood and the lies that are coming on the media. Because surely the ultimate goal is Allah, and surely Allah is the one who will decide who will rule this earth. As Musa alayhi salam said very clearly, Ista'inu billahi wasbiru innal arda lillahi yurithuha man yasha'u min ibadi. Seek your help from Allah and have patience. Surely this earth belongs to Allah, and He will give it to whom He pleases from His servants, His worshippers, and the best reward is for those who have taqwa. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala khatam al-anbiya wa mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa ba'd. There were a number of questions, some that were repeating themselves, and also some that were a little bit distant from the topic. So we've tried to bring together those that could be of benefit. and those where there is a possible response to it. And the issue of deception, I mean, what I am attempting to do with this study is not to give you the final conclusion concerning deception and its many forms, but to try to open up this issue in your minds. Because it is something that could take a person a whole lifetime to try to understand the complexities about what is happening in this world. And there is so much deception going on different levels within society. And I don't claim to have all of the answers to this. I claim to be a student of the present world situation that we are living in. And I hope, inshallah, that Allah would bless you and people of conscience, especially from the Muslim Ummah, to be able to clear their vision and to get good insight as to what is happening in the world. One of the questions is saying, what do you mean by there will be a time when people will recite the Quran in melodious tones, but it won't go past their throats? Basically what this means is that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about that a time would come when people would be reading the Quran in very beautiful, melodious ways, even following the rules of tajweed. But it would not go to their heart, meaning it would not affect them. So if Allah is saying, أَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ وَآتُ الزَّكَاةِ, establish prayer, and you should also give the zakat. And a person reads this, and other people are listening and say, Ya Allah, Allah, when he reads the verse. And then Asr comes, and they don't make salat. Or the person who reads the Quran itself, reads it in a very beautiful tone, and then he doesn't pay zakat. So he's read it in a beautiful way, but it didn't apply to himself. And when the early Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, used to deal with the Quran, they would deal with it ayah by ayah, section by section, small amounts, and practice. Not large amounts just to read like parrots, right? But you're reading it for a number of, you're reading it not only for the tilawa, but tadabbur, ayatihi, itba, awamirihi. You're reading it to reflect on the verses and to put it into practice. And so this time has come that we are living in. And you've seen many situations where people are moaning and groaning when the Quran is being read. And as soon as it's done, they go right out and disobey Allah. So really, that is not, this tanzeel came not as a nice song. You could listen to Michael Jackson or somebody and cry too. It's not like music that people listen to and it changes their emotions. This is the words, this is kalamullah. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's supposed to affect us not only emotionally, but it should affect us in our life. The other question is how does somebody purify their heart? Now this is an issue that the great scholars of Islam have studied, for many centuries. And in the Quran and in the hadith sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there is much guidance. And what happens with many of the issues is that the scholar will look at, for instance, the diseases of the heart. So they will describe to you the problem, and then they will show you what is the way to fight this problem. Like for instance, one of the diseases is takabbur, kibriya, like pride and arrogance. And so they say, if you are proud of yourself, you're proud of your clothing, you're proud of the way you look and who you are and whatnot. They said, number one, you should reflect upon yourself in relationship to Allah. Really think about this. Because no matter how beautiful you think you are now, we all came from a very ugly place in the sense that nobody wants to look like what we look like when we were being formed in the womb of the mother. Also, one day we will all return to the earth. And when we die, nobody wants to follow you down into that hole. So really, what do we have to be proud about when this life is only a fleeting thing? So the scholars say, remember yourself in relationship to the creator of the heavens and the earth. If you have too much pride, then one of the action ways, serve people. You serve people. You think you're big and proud and you're a special person, then you take some time, you invite some people over your house, or you go to an occasion and you serve them. You serve the food. So you're no longer the big chief and the big sharif and the big queen. You serve the food to the other people. Humble yourself to other Muslims. Wear clothing, you know, that is not so nice sometimes. Be humble and simple sometimes. And then in this way, you know, it fights off that false pride that comes into the heart. The hasad, we have to remember, if jealousy is in our heart, we have to remember that if somebody has some good in their life, it is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really, money and wealth is not necessarily a blessing. In many cases, money is a curse. And it has come into our ummah, and there are some parts of the nation who had strong, masculine people, strong, feminine, good Muslims, and when they got some money, they changed. Their whole outlook changed. And they became arrogant. And this has happened throughout our history. Maybe this is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, has said that every nation there is a test, and the test of this nation is wealth. Right? It is too much, it's like getting too much wealth. So you need to read, there are a number of texts that go into the amrad al-qulub, the diseases of the hearts. You know, what are the cures? You need to try to find some of these texts. You know, but I think, you know, really the essence of it is, you know, your intentions. And, you know, it's not a complicated definition in the sense that we need to really purify ourselves and humble ourselves before Allah. If we do this, then we can begin to look at other creations in another way. Another question is saying, is it better to stay in the West or to make hijrah to the land of the Muslims? Really now, you know, there's a saying that began about 20 years ago or so, and now it's really come to fruit in the sense that the whole world is like a global village. Okay, and really, you know, the barriers between countries and cultures have decreased and have changed radically, especially in the past 10 years with the internet and with the communication systems that people are sharing throughout the planet. So really at this point, you know, there's no East and no West like it used to be. There's no East and West. And some of the Muslim countries, I'm sorry to say it, are more oppressive than living right here in Australia. Because in Australia and in South Africa, I can say that from South Africa also, you know, there are people, you can reason with people. But in some of our own countries ruled by tyrants, you can't reason with them, man. If you disagree with them, they throw you in jail, man. You forget about lawyer. Lawyer? That's a joke, man, in some of these countries. Lawyer? You Majnoon or something? Lawyer. What is this? You know, so I mean, you know, we have to respect, you know, the fact, the goodness in some of the countries that we live in. And what you have to recognize is that Islam is not something which is just controlled by Muslims. Because part of Islamic culture, the establishment of justice, the qadi, the judge and the system and the courts and whatnot, this was passed by Muslims in Andalusia to the Spanish, and then the Spanish passing it on to other European cultures. So many of the laws, even in this country, and the setup of the courts and the educational system, much of this comes directly from Muslims themselves. So, you know, there are some Islamic tendencies in this country itself, in the people of this country. This is why I say when you give da'wah, you have to realize that every person is born as a Muslim. They have the ability to submit to the Creator is within every human being. It is not the property of any master race. Allah has sent prophets and messengers to every tribe. And so we should try to appreciate that fact. And, you know, we need to try to practice Islam, you know, in the best way wherever we are. Because at this point in time, there is no real country that can say it is an Islamic state. We don't have any Islamic states that you can just go to, you know, and travel. You go to the Muslim world and they say, where's your visa? Ta'shira. Come yom. You know, how many days? Say, come yom, I'm Muslim. You know, my ta'shira is la ilaha illallah. Why are you asking me for a visa? But no, they want visas, man. And if your visa is up, out. You know, so this is the reality. So wherever we are, you know, we need to practice Islam wherever we are. Not because whether you're in a Western country or an Eastern country, we practice, you know, wherever we are. You know, there was a person in Canada, in Toronto, a sister came to me and she was very upset. And she said that there was, in the sisters section, which was on the second floor, that, you know, this brother was up by the sisters section. and it was Jumu'ah. So one of the sisters went to this person. She was coming in and she saw this person. She said, go down, why don't you go to the brothers, man? What are you doing here? And he said, I don't have to make Jumu'ah. She said, why? She says, because, and this is real. I mean, I don't know if there's something wrong with him, but this is what he said. He said, I don't have to make Jumu'ah because, you know, I'm not in my country, and because I'm not in my country, I can't have tahara. I can't have wudu. So I don't have to make Jumu'ah. So he thinks that if he only in the Muslim country, he can make tahara, he can make wudu, and he can make salat, and then anytime he's outside. So what does that mean, man? So what happens if you die outside of the Muslim world? Innal arda lillahi. The verse says the whole earth is Allah's. Anywhere on the earth you are, you can make salat. That is the difference between us, or one of the differences between us and the other nations. Another question is saying, if I won a prize of money, that I got it by luck, can I accept it? I never went near gambling and never thought of it. You see, everybody has a test. And your test is really shaped and measured for you, as well as mine is shaped and measured for me. And one day, wallahi, I received this thing, and it said, Mr. Abdullah Hakim, quick, you have won a prize, and I want you to come down to the hotel and pick it up. Come and pick it up, man. And we will give you a prize, and if you answer the right question, you might get a free trip to Hawaii and a new Toyota. And so they said, I won this prize, man. And really, my nafs was saying, no, astaghfirullah, you know, he's going to ask you a question, you know, whatever, maybe this is not. No, man. The things that are by chance, you throw the dice, you know, you roll the numbers, you know, whatever like that, this is not Islamic, man. That we should be, you know, you can, with skills, you run a race, everybody puts down $5, the winner of the race takes all of the money. But you don't stand on the side and say, I put $5 on Zaid because he's big and he's going to win the race. No. That's gambling. So in any form, we need to try to avoid this because this is a test. It says, you highlighted the importance of the need for Islamic unity. What is your opinion in terms of the Quran and the Sunnah in the setup of the Islamic Cooperation Society to help remedy the problems of the Islamic unity? Definitely, the basis of unity would be the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If a person is not underneath these two things, then it's very difficult to unite Islamically with that person. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, I have left you two things. If you follow them, you will never go astray. And that is the Book of Allah and my Sunnah and my way. So these are the only two things that he left that we would never go astray by following. It is the basis of our faith, and it should be the basis of the unity. Now there may be varying understandings, you know, within the Book of Allah and within the Sunnah. And we need to have adab al-ikhtilaf, that we need to have the etiquettes of differing. If we differ with somebody, you need to differ with politeness, and we need to look at the adillah, the dalil that is there, and we need to have respect for other people and their opinions. And if they disagree, even if you're right, then you say alhamdulillah, you make dua for the person, leave them, man. Okay, maybe Allah would guide them to the truth. And so you need to try to make a unity, but you have to remember that Hudhayfa ibn Yaman, radiallahu anh, he said to the Prophet ﷺ in a long hadith, something to the effect of, and it's going as a long hadith, and at the end of it he said, what should we do in the time of, you know, fitna? And the Prophet, peace upon him, said, go to the imam and go to the jama'ah. And he said, what if there's no imam and no jama'ah? He said, then in that case, you know, you should cling on to the roots of a tree. Go by yourself. Hang on to your faith until you meet Allah in that state. So if the Muslims are all divided and there's no jama'ah, no imam, we still have to stay on the path as though we were Ibrahim alayhi salam. One ummah. Each person has to have that inside of themselves. Another question is coming from a non-Muslim perspective. What do you answer as a Muslim if he says to you, where are non-Muslims going after death? We have to always remember that, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is the creator. He is the one who will judge, and not us. And, you know, those people who have followed the prophets of different nations, whether it's Moses, whether it's Jesus, other prophets, peace be upon them, you know, they are considered to be those who submitted to Allah. Okay? Also, the Quran says, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We have sent to every nation a messenger, that they would worship Allah and stay away from false gods. So amongst the Aboriginal people in Australia, amongst the indigenous or Aboriginal people in Africa, in South America, the Aboriginal people in Europe, all tribes, all nations, China, everybody received the Prophet. And that if a person is following Tawheed, oneness of God, and they did not receive the message of Islam clearly and directly, then they are under the mercy of Allah. If he pleases, he will punish them. If He pleases, He will forgive them. That is out of our hands. If the person has gotten the message directly, and they refuse to accept that message, then, you know, the Quran shows us that they will receive a painful punishment in the next life. But we are not the ones who judge people. Our job is only to deliver the message. And people must choose the message. La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana rushdu min al-ghayy. There is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from falsehood. Another question is saying, brother, what do you think about the many European people who see oppression and stand up to guard it with their lives, and it goes on with different points. You know, what about the people who are protesting against the situations in the world? We have to realize that oppression and deception is not based upon any particular color. That it can be found in any color, in any race, in any nation. And with that as a basis, you know, with right and wrong is the basis. It's not based on tribe. And this is one of the blessings of Islam, that it spread to all different nations, all different types of people. And it was shocking for people in South Africa, you know, so far away from the Muslim world, to realize, you know, these old anthropological definitions of race. They used to say Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, right? They're describing people. They give these old type of definitions. And the Caucasian people, or the European people, the people of Chechnya, you know, who waged, are still waging a struggle against the Soviet communist oppression. They have been Muslims for over 1,200 years. And they are pure white Caucasian people. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Their roots in Caucasian culture is probably one of the purest roots, if you go back to the actual basis of European culture. But they're Muslims. So it's not based upon color. It's not based upon race. And that has to be our basis, because other people are basing things on color. They're basing it on race. And we should not use those definitions. But if the people are wrong, they're wrong. I don't care what color they are, or how powerful they think they are, or what language they speak. It says, okay, that's the same question. Yeah, it said, brother, while the problems are going on for Muslims, is it better to go in jihad or study Islam? Because jihad is fard ayn, or should I study, or what should I do? There's a few questions concerning jihad. Now, we have to realize that the definitions that are coming in the newspapers, when they use the word jihad, they are saying holy war. Okay? But we know that the word jihad from the juhud, or you're struggling, you're exerting yourself, and that this struggle is in all different forms. There is even a jihad which is inside of the person, jihad al-nafs, which is not necessarily the greatest jihad. That's a weak hadith that said that that's the greatest jihad. But there's an internal jihad, which is a very strong, powerful one. And we have to go to this jihad every day. That's a struggle to choose between right and wrong. And that is a form of jihad. There's a jihad that goes on in your house. There's a jihad in your community. When you clean up, when you stand against evil in any form, that is jihad. There is also jihad bil mal. There's also a struggle with your wealth, right? Where you can actually, you know, support people who are struggling in jihad. You can even hold back your wealth, which we'll be talking about, which is like boycott. You know, things like that. You know, so there's many different ways of struggle. There is also a form of the struggle when people are attacking you and fighting you. You stand up and you fight and you defend yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every nation in the world, you know, says our heroes, they have Memorial Day. Do you have Memorial Day here in Australia? So you have an unknown soldier. About those soldiers, for instance, who fought in World War II and, you know, against the Japanese or whatever it is they'll say here in Australia, right? So every country has that. So there's nothing wrong with Muslims also feeling proud about the people who have died in the path of Allah, and also be prepared to stand up to defend their rights. This is a God-given right to every human being. And it is agreed upon even in the United Nations and other things like that. You have the right to resist occupation. So that this is nothing which is, you know, special. And, but we have to realize that if you see evil, as the Prophet ﷺ said, change it with your hands. If you can't do that, say something. If you can't do that, then feel it in your heart. And that is the weakest form of faith. So in terms of the struggles that goes on in the Muslim world, it's not always proper for Muslims to necessarily personally go inside that struggle. Because you may make it worse in the struggle than you know, for the people who are there in the struggle. You want to go into jihad in a country where it's snowing outside. There's some brothers in South Africa. They want to go up, you know, in the mountains in Chechnya, whatever, the Soviets. Okay, man. I said, have you ever seen snow before? He said, no. I said, you have never seen snow before, and you want to go up there. Okay, and they're living in the snow. They sleep in the snow. Okay, you want to struggle in jihad? I said, it's a cold night, it was raining out. I said, take this blanket and go sleep outside on the sidewalk. And wake up tomorrow morning and tell me how you feel. Okay? Then you will see whether you really want to go out there. You're not necessarily prepared to do that. Right? But you can make dua, you can support people and other things. So there's different levels of struggle, and you need to see where you fit in. But the point is that if we see evil, that we should try to do something, some sort of resistance to the evil that is around us. The other question is saying, what is your advice in seeking authentic knowledge? In a country like Australia where the scholars are scarce, or in a Muslim country, you know, what should we possibly do? Well, we should try to seek knowledge wherever we possibly can. And really, you'll be surprised to know, if we get serious about learning Arabic, if we get serious about the basis of hadith, there's enough knowledge right here, you know. We tend to want to be great scholars and we won't take the first step. Right? First start learning how to read Fusha Arabic properly. Try to learn, you know, your vocabularies. Try to learn the basic grammars. Start to, you know, learn to read the Quran properly with tajweed. Also start to learn hadith. Go to learn your basic things. And then inshallah, there are different cities and parts of the world where you can get a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of problems in the Muslim world. But still there are places, like I've been told, there's many brothers and sisters who are in Damascus now. And they say there are a lot of good scholars in Damascus that are around. And you know, it's fairly safe in the sense you can come in there, get some knowledge, and you can leave. So there are still places like that in the Muslim world where you can seek knowledge, you know, with the right struggle. There are a number of questions concerning unity itself. And concerning the issue of unity, like I said, we need to work towards this. And there is no set way that we gain unity, but we need to try to unite with other people. And the best way, I believe, to unite is not just talk, but it is action. That we try to do things together. You know, you try to struggle together, doing positive things. One thing I'd like to say, we may talk about it more. You know, we were talking today with the children about the environment. You know that the struggle to clean up the environment is one of the most dangerous issues facing human beings today? A lot of Muslims don't know that, man. And do you know that if we are struggling to clean up the environment, that we are actually doing something Islamic? Because we believe it is Allah, it is the Creator who made this environment. And if we preserve it, if we protect it, if we clean it up, then we are actually doing a positive thing in Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ used to always encourage his followers to plant trees. Plant trees. Even if Qiyamah is coming, plant a tree. Okay, so planting trees, preserving life, cleaning up the environment. These are Islamic actions that we can do. So there are many things that we can do within this society in pointing out the good and forbidding people from evil. And we need to try to unite upon good Quran and Sunnah type attitude and action programs. Another one is saying that I am 18 years old and I'm in a very, very bad situation. And he said that he's dropped out of school and he's failing, he's having problems, and he doesn't know what to do, and he's in a bad situation. What I would like to say is that you need to go to some of the groups that have brothers who have been out there. And I know that the Jama'ah, the Isna Jama'ah, has brothers who have been out there, who have been in the streets, so to speak. If you use that language of the streets, right? You say that here, right? Okay, they've been in the streets, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them back to the truth. So you need to go to somebody who's been out there, and suffered some hard times, and then Allah guided them to the right path, and then listen, get counseling, man. You need to get counseling, and somebody who can sit with you and spend some time with you, and then show you through example as well as words how to go to the right path. Okay. Another question is, if this world has become a difficult place, okay, that says, why shouldn't we do something about it? Of course, we say that we should do something about it. The other question is that, is it correct to say that we cannot pray Jumu'ah if we have to work? Work is more important. There are people saying this, is this correct? This is ghurur. This is another form of deception. And there was even one of the Muslim countries, I don't like to name countries and individuals, but there was a Muslim country where the head of state actually said, don't fast in Ramadan, do some extra work. Okay? And, this is deception. This is the shaitan who is deceiving somebody, concerning these issues. Because those things that are the most important are those issues that have been made compulsory upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? They are musharri'. Tashri' comes from the Creator and His Messenger. We do not have the right, to dissolve that which has been made compulsory in order to do something else. Okay? So the Jumu'ah is made compulsory for a reason. Our salat is 5 times a day for a reason. And if we look at the weakness of our hearts and the weakness of our lives in this material world, you can see the reason why we need to stop and make prayer. We need to fast. Some of us need to fast 3 or 4 months a year, right? And not, especially brothers who are not married yet. We need to fast 3 or 4 months per year, and not just in Ramadan, okay? But alhamdulillah, the Creator is merciful and made fard upon us the days of Ramadan. And so, the Creator knows better than us, what is good for us, and we don't have the right, to try to put our own opinion above the opinion of Allah. Another question is saying that the person suffers from depression and it is caused by Islam and culture. They find it hard to practice Islam because their family came in the way of them. They're dominated by culture. And they even make it difficult, and they treat the person like a stranger. Well, this really is a test. And everybody has their tests, and inshallah, Allah will give you ajr, will give you a reward, a great reward, for struggling with politeness, be gentle, but be steadfast in your deen, and you show respect to your parents. But if they try to lead you off the path, like you read in Surah Al-Luqman, try to read Surah Al-Luqman, and then you will see that you obey your parents, but you don't obey them in ma'siyah. If they are taking you to sin, we don't obey them, and we don't follow them if they are commanding us to do that which is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you need to reach out to other Muslims, and because our real family is within the family of Islam. And so I pray that Allah would make it easy for you in your life. And we need to make dua for this person, and for others who are struggling, with Muslims, who are just cultural Muslims. Another question says, in terms of advice for the young people. For the young people, I believe that the young people more than anybody else are feeling the effects of the globalization. And inshallah, I want to talk more about this tomorrow night, inshallah, about this issue and how it is impacting upon our nation. But in terms of the internet technology, the digital technology, they are really under this pressure a lot. And my advice is, don't spend your time, or the majority of your time, in front of the television. Because they are creating a false world. They are making an illusion, and they have the ability to make it seem real. You need to spend more time traveling, in nature, playing sports. You know, look at the real creation of Allah. Don't look at the other false creations. Because if that becomes your, the basis of your world, then you are being taught racism. You are being taught classism. And you're also being brainwashed into being ashamed of yourself, ashamed of your color, ashamed of your language, ashamed of your people. And it is purposely being done. And, you know, when you look at these programs too much, that becomes your reality. Or that becomes the base in which you judge the rest of the world. But if you spend more time, if not all of your time, you know, looking at the real creations of Allah, then if a TV's in front of you or a movie's in front of you, you can see how shaitanic the thing is. You can see where the lie is, right? So the sitting type things where you're just sitting there and you're an observer and it's being, this message is being pumped into your mind. Don't spend that much time in front of that tube. Give it up, right? And go out into nature. Be involved in action-oriented programs, right? So your life can become real and not, you know, like a Hollywood construct. Also, you know, this question of Islam and culture. The young people, you study Islam, study, you know, the Quran, the Sunnah, the first 3 generations, the early generations. Study how they practice, and then you will see the real Islam. Okay? Then you can judge what is going on, you know, in later generations, and especially today. And you will see some of the cultural practices that happen within your own family, you know, and you will see, you will be able to start to distinguish between one and another. And this is very important for us, because it seems confusing many times what is happening in our families. Another question is saying, is there any sin in delivering the newspaper? Okay, I'm not a mufti, you know, actually. And I've never seen this question like this. It depends on the level of the newspaper. I've never seen anybody say that it was haram with like the daily newspapers. Although some of these papers are getting really bad. I don't know how the papers are here. But some of the papers in the paper now in South Africa, you know, it would be wrong to deliver that. Because it has naked women on the pages and things like that. So, you know, it's actually a form of filth and propaganda that is being spread. And if that's the case with the newspapers here, then you should try to deliver something else. You know, deliver halal, go to the halal restaurant, deliver their food. Right? Or try to deliver, you know, you have delivery skills, right? You can use your delivery skills for something else, other than delivering the newspaper. The question says, what could you tell us about the simple step to go forward to bring the Islamic unity? Okay, these are enshrined in those 10 points that I gave, or those 7 points that I gave. The other question, it said, why did you study Islam in Africa? That's an interesting question. Well, to be honest with you, I studied this partly because of my own desire to understand my roots, okay, and the connection between my family and Muslims. And because many times when new Muslims, when you accept Islam, and I accepted Islam, alhamdulillah, and when you accept Islam, sometimes you feel isolated. And, you know, the people say there's new Muslims, there's revert or convert or whatever, and they say there's Muslims born in Muslim families. As though the people born in Muslim families are the authentic, true Muslims. And the ones who accept Islam are like, you know, like we say asli and taqlidi, like one is asli, the original, and the other is an imitation product. You know, they used to say made in Japan, right? But now, you know, people want things made in Japan, right? So asli and taqlidi, you know, you see that really all of the Sahaba, you know, accepted Islam. And there were some of the Sahaba who had drinking problems and killed people and fighting problems. And they had many problems. And they accepted Islam and they were the best generation. Okay? So if they were the best generation and they accepted Islam, then there is no difference between whether you're born in a Muslim family or not. It is your amal. It is your actions. It's your taqwa. That's the difference. And not necessarily the family that you were raised in. But I found myself in that situation, and so I was interested to know, because we have a thing called roots. We are searching for our roots, right? And our heritage. And so I was searching, and I found out that, you know, when I was first coming into Islam, you know, it was through the study, it was within African history that in West Africa, many of the great kingdoms there and empires were actually Islamic. Mali and Songhai and cities like Timbuktu and Jenne and all that. These are actually cities of learning, man. Okay? So I found this out and I became very interested in this. And I found out that over 30% of the people who were captured and taken to America as captured prisoners of war or slaves were actually Muslims. I was shocked to find out that there were ulama in Brazil, in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Trinidad, in Suriname, in the United States who were writing books in classical Arabic during the slavery period. Okay, so when I found these things out, it became very interesting. And then in terms of da'wah, which I have been involved in all of my life as a Muslim, inshallah hope to be involved in for the rest of my life, that this call of da'wah in America, that if you go to the town, if you go to a university and you say, we're having a program on what is Islam, nobody's going to come, man. Okay, most people, they want controversy or they want something that interests, because they're programmed, right? But if we said we are studying African history, roots, okay, hundreds of people come because they want to know about their roots. And so we show them about Islam on the African continent and the great scholars that were there and the contributions made, and through that we are able to give da'wah. Also, I found that there were great illuminaries, great leaders, great scholars on the African continent. You'll be surprised to know that in the 15th and 16th century, scholars came from Hijaz and they went to Timbuktu. And when they went there, they found a city of 100% Muslims with thousands of books. Just recently, the president of South Africa went to Timbuktu and he visited the city and he found 15,000 books in Arabic, still in somebody's house. 15,000 books in one house and courtyard. Still there, and on science, math, astronomy, medicine, everything is there. At one point, the scholars found over 80 to 90,000 books within the homes in Timbuktu. That's only in this century. It was a great center of learning. And so through this, we were able to understand more about Islam, the beauty of Islam as it was spread in different parts of the world, and also able to give da'wah by using this methodology. It said that, do you recommend that people marry the same culture or intermix? It seems to me that not many people have mixed cultural marriages because they are racists. Okay, that's a heavy question in a sense. You know, really, marriage, as we know, should be based upon the deen. And you know that the Prophet ﷺ has told us very clearly that you should marry for 4 things. That you know, you should marry for wealth, marry for genealogy, nasab. You know, you can marry also for beauty, but you should marry for deen, and then you'll be successful. Okay? It's a base rough translation of the hadith. So there's these 4 categories that you look at when we're dealing with marriage. Okay? But some people, they put nasab as number 1 and everything, is the family and the genealogy. Okay? Some people say to their young daughter or son in cultural Islam, they say to them, do what you want to do. Go to college, play around, do anything, but when you're ready to get married, you're going to marry your cousin. And that's it. You're going to marry your cousin. Okay? This is not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And one of the blessings in the fact that he was allowed to marry so many times, he broke down all types of barriers. He married somebody who was not his tribe, not his color. Right? A woman who was divorced before, a woman who was previously from a Jewish family. Right? He married her. So he broke down all the artificial barriers that we have in our minds. Okay? He broke down all of those barriers. And so these barriers, you know, these things should not be the basis of the marriage. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take it into account. There are sections in kafa'a, or where you are judging, you should judge based upon these things. You should ask about somebody's family. You should ask about their wealth. You know, if the brother wants to marry you, sisters, make sure he's got a job, man. You know, if he says, yes, I'm marrying you on Quran and Sunnah, all I have is Quran and Sunnah. Okay, mashallah, but you got to have a house, man. You got to have a job, right? You got to have a job. Okay? So these are factors that we have to get involved in. And I would say that really when a community, when you come to a jama'ah in a city that has all types of Muslims, and you see in the mosque or the gathering there's only one type of people, something's wrong. Okay? When you see a mixed gathering such as this, you know something's going right. It's Islamic. Because Islam is supposed to bring together all nationalities, all groupings. It's supposed to bring it together. And that is one of the blessings of people in America who are very mixed up. You know, they have mixed genealogies, right? Like myself, right? So you have African, you have European, and you have native Indian, right? Indian, Mohawk tribe. And you have all types of things in your blood. You know, so you don't worry about these issues. All of us are from Adam, and Adam is from dust. The next question is saying, please, I need, it's saying that, is it allowed to get the nationality of a non-Muslim country, and I don't intend to live here, but, you know, I want to get medical benefits. Am I deceiving the society and whatnot? We have to be honest with what we are saying to people. And really what happened in Canada, unfortunately, is that some Muslims came to Canada and they came and they actually deceived the society. They came and they had welfare under 4 or 5 different names, you know, and they had jobs. And some of them were even sending their wives, وَالْإِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, down to the social welfare office. And she comes in full hijab and she reports and she says, I'm not married. And so the people say, you're not married, okay? And you're a Muslim? She says, yes, I'm a Muslim. They say, okay, we'll sign you up. 10 months later, she comes with a baby, right? And she's still collecting her check. So the person says, what happened to you? You are holy people. Then where'd you get the baby from if you're not married? Right? So she has to lie to the people and say, I'm not married. And really in Sharia, I'm not a mufti. But if you're making statements like that, this is serious, man. You're telling people I'm not married. You're swearing that you're not married. Okay? And when you swear oaths like this, even if it is to the kafirun, you're not in a hot war where somebody's going to shoot you and kill you if you are the brothers over there or over there. And if the brothers were over there, I'd say, they're over there, sir. Right? I can lie like that. But can you lie because you want extra money to buy leather coats or to buy new cars? That's not right. That's not right, man. And we shouldn't take advantage of anybody. Right? And it is through our good character and our honesty that Islam spread in Southeast Asia and in many parts of the world. No armies came into Southeast Asia, but it was good merchants who had good character, honesty, justice. That's what spread Islam. And so we should set an example, you know, of honesty and justice. And the group that we were in, Allah knows best, the Imams Council in Canada, you know, said, especially for people who were in very dire situation, if the person had to take the oath to the country in order to be in the country, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you have to take it. It's something that you have to do. But, you know, our ultimate allegiance is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the reality. Another question is saying, okay, so describe the deception that Muslims had toward Christians and other people, the lack of forgiveness, understanding, and harboring of bad feelings. Okay? One of the deceptions, or one of the wrong understandings that Muslims had in dealing with Christians and Jews and other people of the book, is that, you know, Islam is a way of life. And I found out that when I accepted Islam, that I was practicing a lot of Islam already. I was already doing that. Because the same principles of being honest and being good and trying to have a family and to get married and to eat good food, I was already doing it, man. I stopped drinking alcohol before I was a Muslim. I stopped taking drugs before I was a Muslim. I stopped eating pork before I was a Muslim. So there are many things that I was already doing, but Islam now, as the last message, it gives you the clear explanation for the things that the people of the book have lost. Because the scriptures of the people of the book have been confused. And so Islam gives the right direction. But Muslims, Islam, when you accept Islam, you accept it not for Muslims. You accept it for Islam, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the true guidance. And so you find that many people, who are not Muslims have many characteristics of Islam. Also, Tawheed, many people already have the oneness of God. And you find it in many of the cultures. So this is how you need to look at the people when we are dealing with the people coming from other cultures. Is that we are not the only people who believe in one God. We're not the only people who tell the truth. We're not the only people who try to eat clean things. Other people do that just as much as us. But we are blessed with the last messenger who gives the complete message. The clear message is here. The revelation is here in the original language. That's what we have. And this is what has helped us not to go astray like the other nations. Because we still have the book. We still have the sunnah, and we can go back around in the circle, back up to the top. And this is what has blessed us, not we Muslims ourselves. Because if it was just us, we would have been gone a long time ago, man. We would have been gone 500 years ago. But Allah is the one who raises up people. And many of the people who accept Islam actually turn out to be the leaders of Islam. Right? And this has happened throughout our history, throughout Islamic history. It says that said the sister saying, I was jealous of a girl, a beautiful girl, of her beauty and everything. And, she said, I know it's haram, but I can't help it. She's just too beautiful, man. I can't help it. Okay. This is a very honest question, man. It's real. But what you have to understand is that real beauty is not just in the physical, the outward part of the person. The real beauty in the person is their character and their taqwa. These are the things that really makes a person beautiful. And our beauty, our physical self changes over time, right? And everybody will change. Okay, so if you see beauty in something else or somebody else, you say, Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed and tested that person with beauty. Because sometimes a beautiful woman today, really in this world, is in trouble, man. Because there's all types of what you call peeping Toms and Johns and all type of things chasing, and a beautiful woman is chased down the street, everyone's looking at her, her life is a fitna in the society that we live in today. So you need to look at all of these things and to realize that beauty is not just, the skin. It's not just the physical feature of the face, right? Or the thinness of the waist or whatever. But really the beauty is in the heart. That is where the real beauty of a person is. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you that beauty. I'm sure you have the beauty, but you don't really know it, right? But because they have this fable they used to say about mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most beautiful person of all. And they also say like, the grass is always greener in the other fellow's yard. Right? That's what we used to say. So his grass is always greener than, that's the shaitan. Well, iyadu billah. And he uses this, he always tells you, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, and this happens to people. And this culture does it to people. Look at Michael Jackson. You see what happened to Michael Jackson? He was a strong young man. Look at him when he was young. And look what he did to himself. He ruined his face, he ruined his skin, he made his hair fall straight, he broke his nose and tried to make it bigger. He put up his cheeks, right? He had some strange dream that he was Elizabeth Taylor or Diana Ross or something like this. And so he transformed himself. He's not satisfied with himself. This is ghurur. It's deception. He is deceived. He had everything in the world going for himself, but he's not satisfied. You see? That's the essence of deception. So we need to look inside at ourselves for other aspects other than just physical beauty. It says you speak about... they're also saying you speak about unity, and I begin by saying the person's a teacher, and they want to instill Islamic awareness in the youth. What can they do to help really in the school situation? What would you do if you were a teacher in these difficult times? Really, in the Islamic school especially, the teacher's job is crucial. And really, the teacher is the front lines. And I have spoken to teachers in many Islamic schools because really they underestimate the importance of their job. Because when that teacher is teaching the student, that teacher actually represents the messenger of Allah. Because you can't see the Prophet ﷺ. Even deeper than that, you can't see Allah. So that person, in a sense, represents everything in Islam to that child. So you are holding a great amana in your hand. You see, and really, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you greatly for trying in any way that you possibly can to instill the character. So we all need to upgrade ourselves. We need to study the work of great scholars, study the hadith, and try to raise our taqwa, raise our consciousness, so we can try to give this to the youth in the best way that we possibly can. Another question is saying, I'm an Australian from a Christian background who is extremely intrigued by Islam and hope to grow in learning more about it. What is the best way to go about this? I would say that it's important for anybody to study, read, study, meet people. You don't have to believe everything that everybody says, okay? But you need to stay. But to really study Islam, go back to the root sources, look in the book of Allah in the Quran, read the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it was really for me, in my travels, I had met Muslims doing all types of strange things. But when I got the Quran itself and I read it, and I began to read the life of the Prophet ﷺ, I said, this is the person who I want to follow. That's him. And the way he acts, the way he treats people, the way he struggles, this is the character, this is the personality. And this is what you need to really do at this time, to focus on this, on the principles of Islam, and to try to get different opinions from the Muslims. But if you feel something in your heart, then you should act upon that as soon as possible. Another question which is very similar to it, which I want to read right away, it is saying that that there's even a person who's feeling about reverting to Islam, right? But they wanted to do it by themselves and only do it by themselves. Okay, really, Islam is not an organization. So when you accept Islam, you're not signing on the dotted lines, right? It is something that you do, it's between you and Allah. But the Muslims bear witness to this. And it does not have to be in a large crowd of people. It can be with one or two people it can be, right? But you should have somebody who can help you say the words properly, right? And to make sure your understanding is correct. And also to bear witness to the fact that you have come in. This is very important. And if you want to do it tonight, I would humbly advise you and encourage you that if you have that feeling, you should act upon it immediately. Because only Allah knows how long that we'll live. You should bear witness to the oneness of Allah. If you've come this close, then the shaitan and the forces of evil will try to stop you from coming into Islam. So you should bear witness as soon as possible and realize that you go in stages. Go in stages. You don't have to do everything immediately. But you learn your faith properly, and then you begin to learn different aspects of Islam and you put it into your life, and then you move in stages up. Right? You don't have to do everything right away. And it is even permissible that if your family was too strict, right, you don't have to announce it to all your relatives and all your family immediately. Okay? But, of course, it is encouraged that as soon as possible, when you can explain it properly, that you would explain it in politeness to your family members, or you would have somebody who could explain that, to come to the house and explain it to your family, what Islam really is. So they can see that it's not this terrorist thing on TV, and, it's not a cult where you're brainwashed, like, with Moonies or whatever, you're in these different, it's not anything like this. Okay? And, but whatever feelings you have, may Allah guide you and bless you, and may He lead you into Islam as soon as possible. It is also saying, in terms of the best way of avoiding deception, as I said, it's important for us to strengthen our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is important to us to humble ourselves, and to always remember our position with Allah, and to investigate. Don't just accept things, especially coming from television, especially from the media. Don't accept everything for face value. You must investigate. And when I was in the history department in the University of Toronto, one of the good things that they taught within this department is that when you are studying an issue, try to go to primary sources. Always try, as we say in America, take it from the horse's mouth. Go to the source. And if, for instance, somebody's studying about a battle that happened, don't just study the position of the winner of the battle. What happened to the losers? What happened to the people who were watching the battle and whose house got ruined by these crazy people fighting each other? Get the opinion of all different types of people. Then you understand the phenomena in the proper way. What is happening today is that people take only from one source, right? And then they form their opinion, and they don't go to primary sources to understand issues from the people themselves. This is why it is important for us as Muslims to go to the society, to go to the public, reach out to the people, and explain to them what is Islam, man. So they won't think that Muslims are just these terrorists blowing up the building, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's against us, and Chuck Norris, and Steven Seagal, and everyone in the world is chasing us now, right? Everyone's chasing us, right? Or Aladdin and the lamp, and all this other stuff, right? Or we're blowing up buildings, we're destroying the world. This is the hype. This is the hype, right? This is another illusion which is being created in order to cover the minds of people from the beauty of Islam and what we have to offer to the world. Especially in this time of racism, this time of economic exploitation, this time of perversion. We have a lot to really, give to the world. But one of the first things that we need to do is to deal with deception in ourselves. That we can protect ourselves from the plots of the evil one happening within our own hearts and our own lives. And if we begin to do this, inshallah, then maybe Allah would make us vessels of the truth. That Allah would make us deserving and worthy to hold the banner of Islam in these times. Only Allah decides when it is time for Muslims to have authority. But He has promised us, if we believe, if we have patience, He will eventually give us authority on this earth. And the Prophet ﷺ has told us this message will enter every single home. One day, inshallah, this message will go all around the world and it will enter every single home. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ وَالْمُشْرِكُونَ وَالْمُنَافِقُونَ. Even if they hate it, this is the word of Allah. It's not our words, man. It's like a fool trying to blow out the sun. You can't blow out the sun. If you gather together all the people in the world and you blew at the sun, you'll never put out the light of Allah. No matter how many people you try to kill, or you try to hurt or disgrace, you will never put out the light of Allah. And Allah has raised up people in the past, and inshallah, He is capable and has shown us in His book that He is willing to raise up believers. But let us take the first step. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.